Okay, let's talk about one of the most high stakes, honestly, nerve-wracking parts of building or renovating a home, choosing the finishes. Get it right, and you've got a timeless classic on your hands. But get it wrong, and you're stuck with a home that feels dated almost the second you move in. So, how do you avoid that absolute nightmare scenario?
I mean, this is the question, isn't it? It's what keeps you scrolling Pinterest at 2 in the morning. You're pouring so much time, money, and emotion into this project, and that fear of making a huge, costly mistake is so real. But here's the good news. There is a proven strategy to get through this, and we are going to walk through it, step by step.
So here's our game plan. Think of this as your strategic blueprint for a timeless home. First, we'll talk about getting into the right mindset, how to avoid chasing those fleeting trends. Then, and this is a game changer, we'll cover the exact order to make your selections. We'll get into the best core materials, a brilliant rule for your budget. And finally, we'll talk about the one thing that matters more than anything else.
First up, let's just zoom out and look at the big picture. The goal here isn't to create a home that looks perfect on social media for this one specific moment in time. No. The goal is to build a legacy, a home with real staying power that feels just right 20 years from now.
This right here is the whole philosophy. You're not just decorating a house, you're building a backdrop for your life. So every single choice you make, from the floors to the light fixtures, it has to pass this one simple test. Will this feel just as intentional and just as right 2 decades down the road?
All right, let's get into the practical strategy. Because one of the biggest mistakes people make is just choosing things in a completely random sequence. It creates chaos. But there is a correct order, a logic to it all, that makes the whole process so much less overwhelming.
And I absolutely love this analogy. It's like baking a cake. You wouldn't even think about putting the icing on before you've baked the actual cake layers, right? That's just common sense. Well, the same logic applies to your home. Trying to pick a paint color before you've picked your flooring is a recipe for disaster. You need that solid base to build on.
So here it is, the foolproof order. You start from the ground up with flooring. It's your biggest surface, it sets the tone for everything. Then you build up the bones of the room, like your cabinetry. After that comes the heavy hitters, countertops and backsplash. Only then do you get to add the jewelry, the lights and hardware that show your personality. And paint? Paint comes dead last. Absolutely last. Why? Because there are literally thousands of paint colors. It is infinitely easier to find a paint to match your counters than it is to find a counter to match your paint.
So now that we know the order to do things in, let's talk about what to actually choose. You know, the secret to finishes that don't go out of style is surprisingly simple. Just look to nature. Materials that have looked beautiful for thousands of years will still look beautiful in your home for decades to come.
We're talking about things like real wood and natural stone. There's a reason they've been used forever. They're authentic, they're durable, and they just never look dated. White oak is a fantastic choice for floors. It has this really neutral, warm tone that plays well with almost any style. And for natural stone, quartzite is a real winner. It gives you that gorgeous, luxe look of marble without the constant fear of staining it. And for colors, stick to those earthy, warm tones that feel cozy and connected to the outdoors.
And speaking of stone, here is a very important public service announcement. Do not get quartzite confused with quartz. They sound almost the same, but they are totally different things. Quartzite, with the "ite" at the end, is a 100% natural stone. It's quarried from the earth. Every slab is unique. Quartz, on the other hand, is a man-made, engineered product. It's still great and durable, but if you want that authentic, natural look, you have to know the difference.
And hey, it's not just the stone itself, but the finish on the stone that really matters. That super high-gloss, polished look might be stunning in a showroom, but in a real home, it's a magnet for every fingerprint and water spot. It will drive you nuts. A honed or leathered finish, which is matte, is so much more practical for a busy family. It has a softer, more organic look, and it's amazing at hiding the daily wear and tear of life.
Okay, so we've got our process down, we know what materials to look for, but you might be thinking, does all this timeless stuff just mean boring? And the answer is absolutely not. This next section is all about how you can bring in your personality and have fun with trends in a really smart, sustainable way.
And the secret is the 80-20 rule. It's such a simple but powerful idea. Basically, you spend 80% of your budget on the big, permanent, hard-to-change things, your timeless foundation. Then, you set aside the other 20% as your fun money to spend on trendy accents that are easy and cheap to change out later on. So as you can see, the vast majority of your investment is going into protecting the long-term value of your home. That big chunk is your safe bet. But that smaller 20% slice, that's your playground.
That's where you get to have fun, play with trends, and let your style evolve without having to tear out your whole kitchen.
So what does this actually look like? Well, your 80% investment is for things you do not want to change for a very, very long time. Your flooring, your kitchen cabinets, your bathtub, these should be classic. Now, your 20% fun money, that's where you can go for those trendy brass faucets or bold cabinet pulls you're loving right now. Because if you get tired of them in 5 years, it's a quick and easy weekend project to swap them out. Changing your shower tile? Yeah, that's a much bigger deal.
Now for our final, and I would argue most important section. You can follow every single rule we've talked about, pick the right stuff in the right order, but if you neglect this last piece, none of it will matter. We have to talk about craftsmanship.
This might be the single most important thing you hear today. The quality of the installation is everything. A master craftsman can take a basic, affordable subway tile and make it look like $1 million with perfect grout lines and a flawless layout. On the flip side, a sloppy pour installation can make the most expensive Italian marble look cheap. Do not skimp here. Invest in skilled people. And that expert precision extends all the way to those final touches. I love this metaphor of hardware and lighting being the jewelry of the home. Just like a great pair of earrings or a perfect watch can complete an outfit, the right hardware and lighting are what elevate the whole design. They're the final touch that takes the look from just good to truly exceptional. Ultimately, that's the goal here, to create something that endures. Trends will come and go, that's for sure. But a home that's built on a foundation of quality materials, a thoughtful process, and expert craftsmanship, that kind of design will always stand tall and beautiful, no matter how much time goes by.
So, as you make all these choices, try not to just ask yourself if something is in style. Instead, ask this: what story do I want my home to tell about us? Because the best finishes aren't just about looking good. They're about creating a perfect backdrop for the life you want to live and reflecting the people inside those walls.